Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Scott Warr.
And I'm Krissy Mail.
And we're missing Don. He actually entered a 5K recently, and we were expecting him back after just a short amount of time, but he took a wrong turn, and he just texted me. He's at mile 47 of his 5K race, and so unfortunately he's not going to join us today. But Krissy is here, Krissy Mail, who is joining us on this Aging Athlete series. We start this off by talking about what does it mean to be a trail runner in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and beyond. How do these decades of movement shape our bodies and our minds? Boy, can it shape our minds, right? Even our identities. This is the fourth in the series of, we're not sure how many episodes we'll do. Krissy may be adding more. Originally, we thought 6, but it may even be more. It's a mini series that we're hosting here on Trail Runner Nation, and of course, it's being hosted by ultra running legend Krissy Mail. She's an American ultra marathon runner renowned for a ton of different things, including a couple finishes and wins at the UTMB. She go look her up. Look at her website, KrissyMail.com, and just see all of her amazing accomplishments. This series we're going to be releasing about every 5 to 6 weeks. We're going to explore what it means to grow older in this sport that we love. How do we train smarter through these aging years? How do we fuel better? How do we recover better? How do we stay motivated? We know that as you're aging, your motivation can wane. And what we can do to enjoy the sport we're doing. We're going to talk to veteran athletes and sports scientists, strength coaches, dietitians, experts from every corner of sports, and they're going to help us understand how our bodies adjust to this aging thing that we're all doing. Today's expert is Celine Yeager, and she is a best-selling health and fitness journalist who walks the talk as a certified personal trainer, a menopause coaching specialist, and a former All-American Ironman triathlete. She's the host of Hit Play Not Pause podcast and the author of Feisty 40 Plus newsletter, where she helps performance-minded women thrive through midlife and beyond. Celine has co-authored books like Roar and The Next Level with Dr. Stacy Sims, and was recently inducted into the Gravel Cycling Hall of Fame. Congratulations! Do you get a medal for that, or a plaque, or maybe a new bike?
You get so much rad stuff. Not a new bike, unfortunately, but you get a jean vest, denim vest with a big old patch on the back. You get a giant wooden carved award. You get a hat. You get all kinds of cool stuff. It was super cool.
Wait, an oar? A wooden oar?
No, it's not an oar. It's a wooden. It's a big. It could be an oar. It's a very large award that is out of cardboard. I was just like, how am I going to fly home with this? I just had to sort of put it in. It took up most of my luggage, but it was very cool. It's a very cool event. Very cool organization that puts that on.
You know, Krissy is doing a lot of the back end work on this Aging Athlete series. Krissy, I'm going to ask you the first question. Why and how did you meet Celine, and why did you think she'd be a good guest on this Aging Athlete series?
Right on. Actually, I've never met Celine. This is pretty great to hear her voice and see her face. I've listened to her many times on Hit Play Not Pause. She provides this awesome platform for women to come on and share their story of going through the perimenopause and menopause transition. And the questions she asks are incredible and so relatable for a woman that's facing these changes and maybe not knowing or having anybody else to chat with. I have a great group of girls, and we reference these podcasts all the time. So you're in our ears a lot. And Roar and Next Level, those two books were instrumental. When I started getting curious of like, hey, what's menopause going to do to this athlete body? I came to find out through Roar that my hormones have been affecting my athlete body this entire time. Like, didn't know that before. And then I was looking at these changes that would be coming. So I just latched on to your voice, Dr. Stacey Sims, and we had Dr. Kelly Caspersman on last week. Those were some of the first voices I found. So when this series came to be, I went for my A list, and everybody said yes. It's been so awesome. So I'm like really excited. One of the reasons that we have all these topics that we've been dividing our original 6 episodes into, now I'm feeling confined by those 6 and wanting to push out and ask more questions and invite more guests on. We'll see where this evolves to. But with all the people that you've talked to, Celine, I felt like mindset and motivation would be like, you've got your experience, which that's where I want to open up this to, and whatever other nuggets you've pulled from the people you've had the opportunity to chat with. So that's how I kind of saw this coming to be. And then if I can ask the first question of you, of just where would you want to share you probably told it so many times. This is a new audience. You're talking to a large group of trail runners, all genders, all ages, and with this aging athlete in mind, that's kind of broad. If you want me to get more specific, you can.
I missed the question. What was that?
Yeah, exactly. What's the question? I'll start with more of the communication piece, because I love how you've opened your platform and provided voice for a lot of women, and then us to be able to connect through listening to other people's stories. What drove you to that moment? Was it your own experience and feeling like you didn't have any resources, so you started creating them? Or where did that all start, that communication piece?
Yes, that is my podcast, the newsletter, that whole arm of my career, which started in 2020, is it's from my own life. It's pulled from my own experiences. So I did not start racing on a semi-professional level until I was 39. Okay. I have always been very active. I played ball sports as a kid. I ran track. I took up running at some point in college, as one does, and afterwards, because it's just easy. It's something that you can do. And I always enjoyed it, though I don't like running on the road at all. I have always been a trail runner at heart, so I feel very at home here. And when I was 39, I read an article in Triathlete. I was also a mountain bike racer, but we'll get to that. And when I was 38 at the time, I read an article in Triathlete, something that I might have written, called 16 Weeks to Ironman. And I was dabbling at that point, as many people were in the 2000s when it was very popular to get into triathlon. And I thought, I can do 16 weeks. I could totally do 16 weeks. I mean, my husband was even out there working in the yard, and I opened the window and I think I'm going to do this Ironman thing, because, it's 4 months.
Give it a shot. Yeah.
And I had done sprints and Olympic and maybe a half at that point. And then I got into it and I realized that the swimming part of the workout was all hieroglyphics. I could not read. I didn't even know what the workouts, I didn't know what any of it meant. I was not a swimmer in that way. I had never done a structured swim workout. So I hired a swim coach. Her husband was an Ironman coach. I sent them all of the stuff they asked for, and they said, you could qualify for Kona with your bike times, because I was a bike racer at that point. And I was like, I don't want to hear that, because I just won 16 weeks to Ironman. I did not. And that became a year to Ironman. And I won my age group and went to Kona 6 weeks later. And that was a very pivotal, transformative time in my life. I got picked up by a semi-professional mountain bike team here on the East Coast. And I spent the next 9 years racing around the world, racing Cape Epic and Brazil, Israel, Cuba, BC, all over the world, as a semi-professional mountain bike racer. And then I got into gravel racing, obviously the Gravel Cycling Hall of Fame.
Nice.
And through it all, I've come in and out of my love affair with running. And as we'll, I'm sure, talk about, got into it a little bit later. So that has been my whole trajectory. Everything was going swimmingly at getting into where I am with menopause until I hit about 48. And I felt like somebody had just turned the power down on me. I was at a race in Cuba and went to punch up a hill, and I thought, that's weird. Where's my power? That's not reacting the way I'm used to. And there was a succession of changes that happened very quickly around that time. Along with the power, there were body composition changes. I was having massive anxiety. I always have a little bit of free-floating anxiety. That's my personality. But we're talking wake up at 3 a.m, world coming down, breathing deep, talking myself off some imaginary ledge that I didn't even understand, bursting into sweat like a sprinkler system. And I didn't I was still having menstrual cycles, and all I knew about menopause was like you stop your period and maybe you have some hot flashes or whatever. And I was working with Stacy on a revision of Roar, and we were talking about maybe doing a 40 plus book. And I was just like, I think we need to do that book. I don't know what's happening. And at the time, I did not understand that our ovarian hormones like estrogen and progesterone affect our moods, they affect our muscles, they affect our cardiovascular system, they affect literally every cell in our body. We have receptors on every cell of our body. And when those hormones go on a roller coaster ride and then nosedive precipitously, as they do when we get to late perimenopause, it affects every system in your body. And that's what I was going through. And I thought, I have been a professional health and science journalist for 20 some years, and I had knew none of this. This is unbelievable. And then when I went to try to find help for myself, all the advice was, well, you should exercise. And I was like, no, I don't know if I can curse. I won't. But I was just like, no kidding. You know,
I should
check on
exercise.
it.
Oh,
Well,
So, yeah.
you're probably exercising more than the average person,
It was
and so
ludicrous.
you're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I have not read either of the books. What is Roar about, and what made you think and to go back to Stacy and say, hey, we need to do a different book about perimenopause? And yeah.
Roar was sort of soup to nuts across a woman's lifespan, basically setting up Stacy's whole pioneering work that women are not small men. And we have since discovered this in the cardiovascular field, in medicine, where they didn't even do studies on prescription drugs on women and had to sort of pull some back because they had different reactions in women. So that book was just setting the stage for women. Physiology sets up a different health spectrum in a woman's life, and you need to know this as an active woman. Especially women have menstrual cycles. Girls have menstrual cycles once they hit puberty. What does puberty do to a girl, and how does that affect her performance? We know a lot about that now. And what happens every month, and how can you work? Like when I was racing mountain bike racing, there would be times every single month that I would just explode from heat. I could not get on top of my hydration, and I never tracked anything. And Stacy said, you should track your cycles. It might be your luteal phase. And she was correct. And I just pre-hydrated and did some other things, and it worked. So when that book came out, we heard very quickly from a population of women in menopause that one chapter, and there was one chapter in menopause, that one chapter was insufficient and not enough. And neither of us was in that stage of life yet. So we were both like, okay, but we just didn't know what else to say until I got there. And as I mentioned, I was like, those women are right. We need a whole other book on this because there's so much. And that one chapter didn't go into all of the intricacies on what those hormones do and what you can do about it and what hormone therapy looks like or doesn't look like and what adaptogens might, all of the things. It is very expansive to talk about 40 plus, the perimenopause and postmenopause period in an active woman's life.
I wanted to go backtrack just a little bit because you said you noticed that change, and it was a question that I had, something different from bike racing to trail running. You said you tried to power up a hill and you're just like, whoosh, everything was turned off. I feel like having those metrics, we don't really have those in trail running to say like, oh, my wattage is down, or we might just notice that we are walking up a hill instead of running up a hill. So have you used that piece of the data?
I never raced with a power meter.
You didn't? Okay. Yeah, so you didn't see that.
I barely trained with one. I've always been an RPE person, much to the chagrin of lots of people I've worked with. But it has been true to me, so I've always done that. So I couldn't tell you my watts, but by feel, there was no doubt. And running, you could 100% feel the same sensation.
RPE, you totally
can.
You know
how you feel when you're 100%. Going up a hill. You know how you climb. You know that. You know how you bound over rocks and logs and what your torque and power and all those things look like on your feet or on a bike. And you know when they're not there.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and that's how I've always trained. But I was curious, but you didn't use the power meter either, so that wasn't notable there. But Scott?
The thing as you're talking through this, Celine, I'm thinking I can vividly remember there have been two major. I can remember at age 36, something happened to my body at 36. Before that, I could eat anything I wanted. I could, my body would not gain weight. I had all the energy in the world, and something happened at age 36. And then I got used to that. Your body tries to, maintain a normal balance. And I got used to that. And then recently, turning 50, when I turned 57, another just huge, dramatic change where it was like overnight, kind of like you were saying, you started up this hill climb and you go, where did all my energy go? At 57, there's been another huge change. And I've been trying to adapt to that. And there's physiological things. I'm more curious about your mind. When these changes happen, when you go through puberty as a young woman and you start having these periods, how do you process that in your mind, especially as an athlete, and then going through your athletic career as a woman? How do you wrap your mind around it, all these changes? Do you just think I'm having a bad day, or there's something here that I need to address physiologically?
Well, a couple things. I want to talk a bit about your discoveries there, because science is sort of backing that up, that there are two periods of time in anyone's life, menopause outside of that, that somewhere approaching 40 and somewhere approaching 60, there are actually physiological changes that seem to occur in people. And there's literally research just in this past year that has been showing that. So that's not your necessarily your imagination. Like there are people looking into that. So stay tuned.
Cool.
As far as what girls to women go through, it's huge. So if you look at, I don't know if you are familiar with Lauren Fleshman's book, Good for a Girl, but she talks a lot about this, how boys have this turbocharge in puberty and their trajectory just sort of goes straight up, where girls are afraid of puberty because their bodies are going to change in ways that are not advantageous for their performance. And that's one of the reasons we see so many girls dropping out of puberty. And if we can keep them in sport and we can help them work through their physiology, they will then rebound once they settle in. And women have a lovely long tail. Look at the women in their 40s. Courtney Dawa just won. Women in their 40s are crushing it in ultras, right? Women have a very long tail in their performance. And if we can get them through there and help them work through that and help them understand all of these things, that we're more susceptible to LEA, low energy availability, which makes us more susceptible to injury. And we have to keep women in the game, and education is a huge part of that. Education, because once you know what's going on, you can address it. And that was how I felt with my anxiety. Once I knew it was hormonal, it wasn't overwhelming anymore, even though nothing really changed, because I would wake up, I'd be like, I know this story. I know what's happening. And it just helps you turn, right? It helps you turn it down. So I think that a big piece of it is understanding, education, because then it doesn't feel like this scary amorphous monster that you're not sure what's going to do next. You sort of understand the process. And you'll see that with women going through pregnancy, same thing, postpartum. And a lot of women through all of these stages, society might tell them, oh, you're done now. Once you've had a baby, or perimenopause, or menopause. And sometimes hormonally, they'll feel done, because hormones affect your mood too. I talk to so many women on the show who are like, I'm up at 4:30, I'm in the pool at 5, I'm blah, 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 blah. And then it's suddenly, they're just like, I don't want to do this. I had a woman on the show, she went out for a run and she turned around, and it was the first time ever. She's like, nope, just not into it. And she just thought, oh, I guess I've aged out, or I guess I'm done. Not understanding that the brain physically changes actually every month with the menstrual cycle. But during perimenopause, when you look at the slides, like Lisa Mosconi is doing actual MRI, like brain scans, the brain is physically changing its energetics, its energy use, it's all of it, its shape. And that 100% affects your mojo and your moods and all that stuff. It affects your serotonin system. So please just get informed, because that will really, really, really help you. And I think just understanding that you don't have to tightly wrap your identity around what you are doing right now or what you have always done. I say this all the time. self-comparison is the biggest thief of joy, and we are all going to get slower at some point. So if you're finding yourself trying to compare yourself on the same course or the same race, and you're not happy and it's not bringing you joy because you're always looking at what you did 5 years ago or last year, please find another race. Please find another expression of your athletic self. There's a million different trail run lengths. You don't always have to do 100 miles. You don't always have to do 50. You can do something shorter. You can do an obstacle course race. You can try a triathlon. You can try an off-road triathlon. There's so many ways to express yourself athletically and to keep that fire going, that I think it's just really, really important not to get so tightly, and a lot of athletes do, wound up in who I am and this is what I do forever and ever until they put me in the ground, because it doesn't have to be that way.
Do you feel like there was a point where you had to go through that? Like, could you tell that story of your redefinition? Like, did you have a point where you're like, okay, I've got to mentally redefine how I look at this? Your personal story.
I wanted that to be a light switch very badly. Like, I wanted that to be, I am competitive and now I'm not. And it just doesn't work that way. Or at least it didn't for me. So when I was starting to write Next Level and starting to work towards this 40 plus menopause space, I followed some of this advice. I started lifting heavy. I started doing some stuff that did make me feel genuinely better. And I won a big race when I was 50 years old. And that was like really great. And it made me feel like validated that I could speak to women and I could help lead in this space, because if I hadn't been able to apply some advice to myself and get myself through the weeds, I don't know that I would be where I am now. Right. That said, I was at that place. I was 50 and I just didn't want to chase podiums all the time. I wasn't going to be competitive in the open field forever. And I knew that, and I was kind of over it, but I felt like I was trapped. Like, I'm like, who am I if I'm not? And then you show up and it's not only your own expectations, it's others. So your friends or your family or the people that you see when you show up at the race are like, oh, you're going to crush it today? And I'm like, no, stop it. I don't want to crush it today. That's not why I'm here. But it's hard because you are managing all of this, and it's a progression for sure. And that was part of me going into trail running again, because I needed something where I would have no expectation of self and others would have no expectation of me.
I like that.
Yeah. And I knew I enjoyed doing it. And I even got back into, like, I signed up for a half Ironman, and because it was like many, many years after that Ironman, and I was not going to train the same way and chase the same podiums, but it was a way for me to free myself from all of that and still have all this stuff that I do. Like, I like the process of training. I like seeing progress. I like seeing results from the work I put in and all of that. I just enjoy being an athlete in all of those ways, but I desperately needed to be free of that self-comparison and the expectations of others. And I'd be lying if I said that's totally closed, because I do still get some of that reverberation, in my own mind and from people, but it's gotten way better. And I've taken up, when I feel that creeping in, I do something else. I'll go on a giant bike packing trip. Like, I'll do the hut to huts, or just something that's really challenging I have to train for, but not necessarily something that even has a finish line or a podium, or something that I have an expectation that I'm going to be in the top 10 or whatever is in my head.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Boy, there are so many golden nuggets with that, just that train of thought that you had right there. Don't define yourself. Your identity is not defined of, where you've been. It's where you're going. And the whole idea of trying something new, that you have no expectations of what is a fast time, what is this is the level of performance because I was there 2 years ago. I absolutely love that. And I think for the most part, a lot of the people that are listening to this may have started out doing 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and they were fast, and they ran some marathons and they were fast. And as they have aged and they're finding that they're not getting any faster, they've decided to try something new, get out on the trail. Yep. And one of the great things about trail running is even on the same course, race course or training trail, they change so frequently that it's not the same. You can't say,
Right.
I'm going to do this loop, and that
Yeah.
loop takes me 45 minutes and 39 seconds, and
Yeah.
you judge yourself on that loop. And yes, that's
It's not
there.
Central Park in Boston or in New York, where you're like, I know to the
Right.
second what it's going to take me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I absolutely love that. The question I have is, as you're going through these changes, you mentioned that you have a spouse.
Mm-hmm.
What did he need to know that you wish you would have told him so that you could both work through this together? Is there something that you should be communicating to your partner as you're going through these trials as you get older?
I do think, and I'm going to speak specifically about women going through this transition right now.
Sure.
I speak to my husband Dave all the time because he hears my work, so
Yeah.
it's not quite the same. But when I do talk to men, and I need men to understand this very specifically, is especially athletic women, one of the things that is the hardest part about what I do and sort of tears my heart out weekly, easily, if not daily, is that many women put on weight during this transition. They have pronounced body composition changes. When estrogen drops, the body puts on fat around the midsection to make hormones. There are changes that just happen. And often women are in partnerships with active men who are very used to A plus B equals C. Well, obviously you're not training right, or you're not eating appropriately, because this is you can't possibly be if you have put on this weight. That doesn't logically make sense to them. Please believe the women in your life. Like, they are going through a transition that is very difficult often for them. They are not just suddenly not working out or suddenly eating differently. They are going through something that's very difficult, and they need your compassion and they need your understanding.
That's beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, that was awesome. That's so spot on.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're done. We dumb males think linearly, A plus B equals C, and calories in, calories out. That should work for you. And I will say, it, at least in my specific circumstance, calories in, calories out doesn't work the same at my age that it used to when I was 25.
Everybody gets that, yeah, at some point.
But
yeah.
so that's a universal thing. But I think you're absolutely right that we need to listen and believe. That's the big takeaway I'm taking from this episode, that I need to do better. So thank you for that. Krissy, did you have?
I was just kind of on that line, and I really like how you and Dr. Sims talk through the adjustments, and just like through N of one experience. Like, I used to eat tons of carbs. Like, I'd go through the grocery store and eat a loaf of bread while I was grocery shopping. And now dense calories that I'm looking for and what my body seems to respond to better. N of one, you've talked to a lot more people and done some of the research. How would you help people, like, as they're noted, like, I don't want to get down the track of you have to change your nutrition during this time. I just noticed I feel better that I have changed it, and my body composition. I'm 48. I might still be facing that middle coming on. Who knows? But how would you speak to it in terms of giving people that boost and changing maybe what's working for them? Maybe that helps their brain feel better. Supplements that you might add to that.
Yeah, I would say a couple things. The first thing is, if what you're doing is working, and you don't need to stop just because you're at a certain point in your life and you've heard that it might work better if you try something else. The advice that I always preface my advice with that if what you have always done is now not working, this might be an avenue to help, because what you're experiencing could be because of these hormonal age-related changes, and this has some research-backed evidence that it could help you. So that is the first thing. And it's kind of like, in my world, honestly, I hear too many women who are completely carb phobic, don't eat any carbs, and they are going the other direction. Like their body is not responding to their training. Their body is not, they're not getting the performance because they're not fueling themselves, because they become so afraid of eating that they are so restrictive that they actually experience better body composition and performance when they start allowing themselves to fuel themselves. Like I see that all the time. And I will put myself in that camp where I got sucked into sort of that low carb space for a while, and it never served me. And once I started being like, you could have that sandwich, that's okay. I just, like, I actually performed way better and everything fell into place. So you have to allow yourself, don't keep digging the ditch you're in if it's not working for you, you know, like go a different way. Now, when women do hit midlife, they can become more carb sensitive, they can become more insulin resistant, all those things can happen. So you have to make better choices often. So looking for a more nutrient dense, you know, carbohydrate, like sweet potatoes, like all the things that you hear about, saving some of those refined carbs for when you need them, you know, gummy bears in the middle of your race, whatever it might be, stuff that I'm sure you guys have talked about many times. Protein becomes exponentially more important because we get anabolic resistance. We're losing muscle. It's harder to hang on to muscle. Our muscles are, like, our bodies are less receptive to protein and making it. So you really have to fuel that fire. You have to be like on top of your protein for sure. So that's the biggest thing. And fiber is a big one too. I think is an unsung hero of anyone going through midlife, but especially women, because fiber helps not only the gut microbiome, but it also helps with hormonal balance, and that doesn't get enough attention. So that also speaks to having better carbohydrate sources.
Awesome.
Selene, I want to ask you a question, and I don't know, I'm hoping there's an answer, but I don't know whether there is. You know, you just went through a lot of different things. You started with, if it's working, keep on the same track. And if it's not working, you need to try something different. Where can someone go to find out what is different? Is it an individual journey, or are there resources? Because I know, like you mentioned, I think early in the podcast, and we all know this, that the vast majority of the medical research that's been done has been done on men, and they just assume that if it works on men, it works on women. So the research that's been done on women is not there. So where do you just go out and experiment and see what works for you, or is there a resource that women can use to say, okay, if you're feeling this way, maybe try this, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, then try this? Is there a resource out there?
I don't want to plug my own things, but Next Level is certainly about that. It is sort of exactly what you're saying. Like, if this didn't work, this could be some things that you can try to get you back on track, to work with your changing physiology. I always just want to work with your physiology. And I always say it, your hormones do an awful lot of work for you in your younger years. And when you get older and those hormones decline and then flatline, you need to pick up the slack of a lot of the jobs that they used to do naturally. And that's where sort of more protein comes in. That's where heavy resistance training comes in. All of that stuff. You need to do a little more work because the hormones are just not doing that lifting for you quite the same way. And, it's not just me. You can find plenty of, I would just look for a coach or a dietitian when you're doing your research to find somebody to help you, because it's nice to have someone to guide you through the process, because if you just try to change everything, that's not necessarily the answer either. So just to find a professional just to consult with for a while to help you in this trial and error process. So find someone when you go into the credentials who has a women's specific training certification somewhere in her thing. You can find people like, I'm menopause certified, right? You can find people, and that just shows that that person has taken that next step of truly understanding like women's specific physiology. Not that everything has to be different for you, but they understand the underpinnings of women's specific physiology. So when you're talking, even stuff like iron, things that are just different for women than are for men, you want somebody who knows that. You want somebody who understands.
Hey, Krissy, and our editor Ryan can maybe cut this out if this is an unfair question for you, Krissy, but I'd like to put you out on the psychological couch in front of us. Very successful at a young age and did some amazing things at UTMB a couple times, winning that, being the youngest woman to complete the Grand Slam of ultra running. I'm curious, in your life, knowing you as well as we do, or maybe not as well as I think I do, did you have a similar identity crisis as you were going through your aging process, and how did you deal with it? And Celine, you're here as the mentor here that to kind of give us some therapy here.
Good luck. I don't know.
Well, I just really
is that okay to ask, Krissy?
Totally, and we can see where it goes, and if it needs to cut out, fine. If we like it, great, whatever. I just really resonated a lot with what Celine said. That was like, I wake up at 3, but I've done a lot of meditation, so I'm able to go back to sleep. But the paranoia, panic, anxiety during the day, creating stories in my mind about what was going on with different people. It
never stops.
Wow.
The rage, like, I don't consider myself a very rageful person. If anything, it's like, I'll go for a long run. That didn't even quench it. It was just this shift that happened over time. In hindsight, I can look back and see it was kind of coming in bursts, fits and starts or whatever. But I'm actually I'm in Colorado right now. I'm here to pace my friend at the High Lonesome 100. I ran the High Lonesome 100 last year as my first 100 post, I never said retirement, but I was done at 40. I had an amazing performance in China and said, I'm done, I'm good. And I hadn't come back. COVID prolonged that. And then last year decided to run a 100-miler. And with my life and having kids in it, I did not get to train. And so I had max 50 miles a week once or twice. And then I showed up in Colorado to acclimate and was like, what am I going to do? How do I run 100 miles? I haven't run 100 miles in a week. I haven't run 50 miles in a week. And now I think I'm going to go do it in one push. So we talked about it on a Trail Runner Nation podcast. And it's really cool being here a year on and reflecting on that whole, mindfuck that happened while sitting here waiting to do that race last year. And I think it's all in the storytelling of it. Kind of that race brought it into huge focus. This last 10 years of adjustments, that was a hyper focus experience in switching on the 100-mile mindset again. And I drew a lot on experience to be able to finish that thing. And I can also see now that doing that race at that time, once again, redefined my relationship to running. So I was mid pack. I was 2 hours slower than even the goal time that I had set out. I had massive GI issues, got through to the finish. And the thing I came out of it was crying, talking to the kids that I have in my life, was I hope that I can help them find something that sees them through through life the way running has me. It still gets me kind of choked up thinking about it. So even through all that baloney chaos of perimenopause, and I'm still in it. I'm trying, adjusting HRT right now to help balance things out, noticing when I don't
in perimenopause.
Oh, I don't want to be around people. We've actually postponed an episode recording because I just couldn't get online for everybody. So I don't even know if I'm asking a question here. That's a little bit of the story
That was a beautiful story, though. That was a beautiful story. And, thank you for sharing that. That just helps people. Even if you don't have answers, sharing your experience like that is massively helpful for people. It's massively helpful.
Platform. It's so fast. I'll tune in and read the little headlines of who's going to talk, and it doesn't even matter if it's a sport that I relate to. The experience is there no matter what.
I was just going to say, dialing in, using, we won't go because you talked to Kelly, but using hormone therapy during perimenopause is very tricky because you're still making hormones, and sometimes you're layering hormones on hormones, and that doesn't necessarily make you feel better. It's a very tricky thing to dial in. But the rage piece is real. I didn't have that as much, but boy, I have seen it. And to your point, in people who were not ragey, people who otherwise were just like, who am I? Who is this monster that is just like screaming at my children? It's real. But the paranoia, the fear, the stories in my head still now, like I'd be lying if I said that's gone,
Yeah.
is crazy making. Like I have, like some days I'm just like, I must keep it together. I must not let this narrator in my head. But for me, one of the things that I didn't know was happening is I would be going down a mountain bike trail I could do in my sleep and would just freeze. Like just freeze.
Oh, yeah.
And have to just freak out and just have to stop. And I just like, what is happening? And then I wrote about it, and estrogen helps with the fear response. It helps with like fear suppression. I was like, oh, okay. And I understand it still hits, but I can sort of talk through it and have some strategies. But yeah, it's real. All of that you just said is very real.
Yeah, letting people know that don't go into a dark place. I mean, there's a lot of stats that show this can be a really tricky time in terms of will
100%.
to live as well. So my biggest piece of advice when I'm touring around with this aging athlete thing is don't go through it alone. Find your group, find your people as trail runners and people in sport, period.
Understand that you can talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can say, I am scared to death right now of this trail, and they will be like, yeah, I get it. And it's okay to have a scared day.
Totally. I remember listening, I feel like it was on your podcast, I hope, was a climber that
Nancy Fegan. Yep.
Yeah, she was able to go up these crazy routes, and then there were some times where she'd have to just like scale it way back because even though she'd done it last week, she can't do it this week. Yeah.
Well, and back to the identity thing, where you know, as you were saying, Celine, you're going down this mountain bike trail that you've done a million times, and all of a sudden you're afraid. Do you question your identity? Or if you're climbing this a massive climb and now you can't do it? Or Krissy, I wanted to ask you, when you finally crossed the finish line at High Lonesome, 2 hours slower than what you thought you were doing, did your identity change, or did you feel like you're still the same trail runner?
I guess I'll answer
or a trail runner, maybe a different trail runner, but a trail runner.
Totally. Yeah. And just redefining, you made a comment earlier, and I was just talking about it on a hike with my friend that I'm here with, that I never went through that marathon phase of running. Like I didn't have I wasn't trying to qualify for Boston. I never had I didn't watch a watch that showed me miles splits. Like I got into ultras at 20. And so I didn't have that road phase of comparison. And I wonder if that's the difference between her and I, of she's got those mile times, and she's really curious why she can't, not she knows why she can't, but they're still there in her mind, where I'm like, I was never this course and that course, running all over the world, different races, didn't create that same mindset. So maybe that's a tip to somebody in their 20s that maybe doesn't want to fight comparison later, is try to just mix it up all the time so that you're not in that space. But I feel like that's been a helpful piece to my own identity as I go through aging, is I'm not wanting to be that 20-year-old. She got injured. The 30-year-old was tougher than nails, but probably pushed herself through some stuff she shouldn't have gone. And now I'm in this spot, and I get to enjoy it in a different way. The mentor part that comes back around is really cool. So riding that wave as opposed to comparison to previous, that's how I'm going with it.
I can add to that very similarly. One of the things, because it's a change in identity. I mean, you're still sort of that same person that did all of those things, and that person still dwells within, but it is a change. I remember very clearly when I was racing in all of those beautiful places around the world, that there was a part of me that was sad to be racing through those beautiful places around the world, because other people were stopping and taking pictures, people not at the pointy end, people were enjoying that in another way. And I could not. I had to be head down and just totally laser focused on getting to the finish line as quickly as possible. And when I talk about myself now, I just say, I had that time, that I was that person. I enjoyed that time, and I'm really enjoying. I splurged on this little set of very good binoculars that I carry, a set of little binoculars with me in case there's a great bird somewhere, and I will stop and I will look.
Cool.
And it's amazing. It's like, that is to be celebrated, right? I am still able to get over these big mountains. I'm still able. That is a joy and a gift in and of itself, and now I can enjoy it in a whole other capacity, and I think that's important.
I love this.
Oh, another
that
gold nugget.
Object that like puts pause. Like binoculars to me is such a pause, right? To get them focused and to find the thing, and that's so symbolic in what you're carrying. That's cool.
Yeah, what another golden nugget. I want to ask both of you this, and I'm trying to think if I felt this. Maybe I have felt this. As you're aging and your split times are getting slower, or the ability to climb up that steep hill is not as great as it used to be, do you find that you have to change the group of people you're hanging out with?
Oh, that's a great question. That is,
and that's a tough one. What are your experiences?
That has been very hard for a lot of women in my community. I will say that, because a lot of women in my community have come up training and racing with men because there just simply weren't that many women around, you know? I was one. And the men do not necessarily hit that same sudden slip. And then all of a sudden they can't keep up with the same men that they've been riding with. And that's a very, very hard challenge for them. So yeah, I mean, they sometimes they find themselves alone, which is super sad. You know, because there is nobody else. And that is genuinely a struggle. And I hear that in my community far more often than I would like to. And I don't have great answers. Now, there was a woman in Alaska. What am I going to tell her? You know, she's in a small community. It's not like she can easily just go to the next town or something. So that is a real challenge. I will say that you can, you know, I mean, you can join them on other days when it's not as competitive, or they're not kind of going as hard, or that is a good time to sort of reassess and be like, okay, is there something that I can try that is a little different, where I can find a group of people that are more symbiotic with where I am now. But it is a very individual challenge for sure. I am still with the guys that have always did, and they're aging. We're all aging kind of the same way, so we're all incrementally getting slower. I for some reason, well, I will say this: for running, I have actually not gotten that slower, because I always ran really dumb when I was like, I would get injured all the time. I wasn't intentional in what I was doing, and I didn't really strength train. And I will say, doing mobility work and strength training faithfully without fail has made me so durable, and I have actually not really lost that much time in my running, and I think it's because I'm so much smarter now.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
Spend more time running. Like, if you're not injured, you actually can get the consistency in the running economy built up.
Well, there's that too, right? If my IT band's not on fire, I can, yeah.
Totally.
You know, I'm as you're talking about the answer to that question about leaving your group of friends, I'm reminded, early in my running career, I used to run with some really fast people, not because I was fast, but because of that specific workout every week. We would do a workout called Mitochondria Monday, and it was slow pace. And that's when I could go be with my friends that were way faster than me and enjoy their company, because it was Mito Monday. It may have been a speed workout for me, but it was a slow workout for them, and we were able to spend some time together. So I think you're absolutely right by changing the workouts. If it's a speed workout, you don't go hang
when
with
they're doing their
people.
base day or whatever. Like 100%, you can
go
on their coffee base ride. Or run.
Super cool. I mean, there's a great opportunity now for groups to form, and we've got one in Bellingham, this awesome figure in our community, and she's calling it Wander Women, and she puts a 4 to 8 mile run, and she goes out and marks it before. She had me come speak at it a couple of weeks, actually, I guess about a month ago, and there was like 60 women there that were anywhere from, I'd say, 30 to 65, 70 years old, and they were all running together. So there's really cool opportunities for if you are feeling alone, there's more of you. So like people will show up if you can pull it together. I think there's a good promo for that.
And if you get online, you can find people that you might not know exist in your community. Find some running groups around you that you might be able to plug into something you didn't even know was there.
Totally.
And really, that's one of the advantages of going to a race and participating in a race is you automatically get segmented by pace, and you may find new friends that are running the same
100%
pace,
same distances, same pace as you are.
Yeah.
Celine, I love this conversation. I'm interested a little bit more in the Hit Play Not Pause podcast. Krissy obviously gave it a glowing endorsement. What can someone expect when they're tuning in or downloading one of your podcasts? What is it about?
Well, I think they'll always learn something because I always learn something. I always make it a goal to learn something myself. So if I learn something, someone else is going to learn something. But so it really is menopause, and the menopause transition underpins it. So there's always an element of what is going on with the hormonal changes that women are navigating, because that's important. Sometimes it's very overt, where I'm talking to a researcher in that space who is talking about some sort of nutrition or supplements or exercise training to help mitigate the changes that you are going through during this transition, right? Like sometimes it is 100% very clear. And a lot of times I talk to athletes, everyday athletes, professional athletes, and you will always feel seen, heard, just hearing their experiences, whether it's Magda Boulay talked about having hot flashes when she was running Leadville, and just like the jacket's off, the jacket's on, the jacket's on, like how you even layer for this when you're at 13,000 feet, right? Or hearing how they are adapting their training or nutrition or what worked for them or how they're getting their protein in. So it's just sort of this communal experience of hearing what other women are doing. You will find common threads in that, and being able to take something that you can apply to your own life, even if it's just knowing that you're not alone.
And if you're not going through perimenopause or menopause and you love women, that sounds like a great podcast to listen to.
I know a lot of male coaches and I have actually had, when I go to races, I've had men come up to me and thank me for the show. Like that's very heartwarming that they listen and they understand better, and that's always cool.
To make it kind of personal, and maybe it's too hard to say, but like of all those conversations you've had, what is your like either greatest takeaway or something that's benefited you as an individual from your like getting to do that podcast?
Yeah, it's so hard to I could never pick out just one, because now 5 years into it, there's so many conversations I've had that have been impactful. I think the biggest takeaway that it has given me is that I had a lot of ideas about the limits of performance with age and with time that I have now suspended.
Nice.
Because we're a whole generation of women coming up Title IX, post Title IX, who are the first wave of women who have started being active when we're young and have continued being active, and now have many more resources to understand fueling and training and recovery and mobility and all of those pieces. And the ceilings that we once thought were there are not real. If people in your 30s, in your 40s, we're seeing women outright win races, bike races across the country like Ram in their 50s. So I just did a gravel camp in Girona, Spain, and 2 women were 68. And one of them is a multi-time national track cyclist champion. And I'm not just saying like, oh, she crushed it. She was crushing it. I could not believe. I kept thinking, I don't know anything. Like I looked at her and I'm like, I hope I am that strong. I was just like burying myself to stay with her up these hills. And I thought, who knows where our ceilings are? I mean, that's been honestly my biggest takeaway.
That's cool. Yeah, and having that audience support that, like in being out and experiencing it and seeing somebody. That's kind of my hope. I've had these like glimmers of like, hey, once maybe all this
It gets better when it settles down, for sure. You'll feel better when it settles down.
Who knows that
the root stuff gets way better. I still have the voice in my head, but she's always been there. She's just gets louder now. But like the other stuff does settle down.
I was wondering, and that stories like that make me have that hope of like, it's not going to be my 20s, but what is my 60s going to be?
Right.
Yeah, there's potential.
Cool. I see a lot of women in their 60s just really doing great things. Yeah, awesome. It's
I've been hearing a bit about the new Feisty Media, like the courses. And did you want to say anything about that? It just launched about a month ago. Is that, are you involved?
I am involved in, I'm not involved in all of them. There's a suite of them, but Navigate Menopause is not new. That one has been out for, is it 30 years? Time is a construct. I don't know. 2 or 3 years that one has been. Navigate Menopause is sort of a module that takes you through all of it. What is happening? Why is it happening? What can you do? And then the new one that you're referencing is the Perimenopause Starter course. And that's just for people who are like we were when we were first going into it, who are maybe, I'm having these strange things happening. Everything's tingling. I've got a burning mouth. Like odd things that you wouldn't necessarily pin on hormones. So it helps you sort of understand the suite of experiences you might be having that are menopause related, and then sort of guides you through, this is how to find a doctor, this is what hormone therapy is about, this is how training can be adapted, et cetera, and so on. So yeah, those courses you can find them at feistymenopause.com.
Very cool. Good.
And we'll link that in the show notes in case you're driving down the road or running down a trail and you don't have a pen in your hand.
Please don't stop and write things. Yeah.
We'll also link the podcast, Hit Play Not Pause, as well as the 2 books, Roar and Next Level. Celine, been a great discussion. I'm super excited to have met you and the things that I've learned from you. I was just telling Krissy before we had you on, there's so many things every episode. We've been doing this now for 14 years.
Wow.
Almost 750 episodes. And every time we finish, Dawn usually looks at me and goes, boy, that was the best episode ever. I learned so much from that episode. And it's hard to say that after 700 and some odd episodes. And I can say that truthfully, I learned a lot during this episode, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and your thoughts and experiences.
Yes, thank you. This was awesome. Better than I could have even hoped.
Well, thanks. I enjoyed it.
So regardless of how old you are, whether you're in your teens, whether you're in your 20s, you're in 30s, if you're navigating into your 60s, all you need to do is something simple. Go grab your shoes, lace them up, and run.
Moss. We need dollars.